to the Finance Committee of January 27th, 2025. We have here in the room, we have committee member Jose Delgado. And on Zoom, we have new committee member, Cateri Walsh. Thanks for joining. And we have City Councilor Victor Davila. And we have the finance team, members of the finance team, Steve Lonergan and Kathy Bono and Chris, I don't know your last name.
Frazier, TV show without the I.
What without the I?
The TV show without the I.
TV show without the I.
Frazier.
All right, Frazier. And who else? We got Richard Allen, Councilor Govan, Lindsay Hackett from the finance team. I guess that's it. I got him already. Okay. I'm sorry, Victor Davila, if I didn't. How do you like your name pronounced? Davila or Davila?
It's technically Davila as well.
Davila?
Yeah.
Like Kamala when we were going through that.
Sort of, yeah, with the accent on the first A. Davila.
All right.
I like to know that one.
Bring a little levity here. All right, so Kathy and Lindsay and the finance team, I asked you guys to come and tell us about the budget process and plan. We went through it the other day. I met with them for a little while the other day. The idea of this item was that we've been going through so much consternation on taxes every year and taxes going up, et cetera. And the next year comes and the same process happens. And so I said to Kathy, why don't we talk about the process so we know where you are in the process and we can figure out if there's a place for the city council to get more involved or to be part of the process in a different way, et cetera. So Kathy, if you or your team could just describe the process where you are in it and any ideas you have on where we could improve the process.
Okay,
with city council input.
So we basically wait until the governor releases her budget, and she did release it on the 22nd. I think Lindsay, if you want to pull up the presentation so people can see that the governor's budget was released, and there was an increase in chapter 70, and there was a 2.2% increase in unrestricted general government aid. So unrestricted government aid went up $1 million. As you can see, chapter 70 went up 7.8%. So the school department again went up substantially. Of the total estimated receipts of the 617 million, 568 million is school department. So that's not city money at all. So basically we did veterans benefits went up, some of the exemption money went up, and that's because they've increased benefits to the veterans that they reimburse us for. But overall, our government aid for the general fund only went up $1 million, 2.2%. But I guess we have to look at it, it didn't go down. So we're gonna try to put a positive spin on it. So we start now that we've got the governor's numbers, we use her numbers, and we start during the month of February to submit to each of the departments their workbooks, so that they can send back their FY26 budget requests. And as in the past, during the month of March, the mayor will hold his budget hearings with each of the departments. My suggestion would be for the council to be involved more in the budget, in the mayor's budget hearings, because he does have each of the department heads there. They explain what they're asking for. They explain if they're asking for anything additional. And then he then asks them direct questions. And I'm not saying you have to attend all of them, but you know, some of the smaller departments, and I'll pick on Pete Garvey's department, there's really nothing there. Besides salaries, he doesn't really go up. So it's not necessary for you because there'll probably just be a 2% increase in salaries and level fund OTPS. But what I encourage you to do is go to the bigger departments that have increases. Go to the park department, go to the DPW, go to those departments, because when we submit our budget to you, we've done our due diligence. We've spent months going over that. So then you guys need to then do that. You need to do your due diligence and look at it. Where can you see the cuts? We are this year meeting with every department monthly. We have done an analysis over 3 years of free cash to find out exactly, and we've drilled down per line item, which departments are turning back money and other than personal services, and is there a trend? Did you turn back the same, an amount on the last 3 years that maybe we can take from you? So we're doing our due diligence there. I'm encouraging the city council to be part early on, not just at when the mayor submits the budget to you, get involved early on. And if you hear something in the meeting that, and I'll pick on Chris Ignoli, that Chris says, you're like, have a side conversation with him and say, is there anything else we can do? Is there any way we can cut? Because when we submit a budget, it's maintaining city services. So to cut, you need to know if you're gonna be cutting any services. So my only suggestion at this point is for you to be more involved in the mayor's budget hearings and focus on certain departments that you see a substantial increase and find out what that increase is for. We try not to have any increases, but costs go up. We know that inflation. I understand our residents, their electric bills go up, our electric bills go up, their water bills go up, our water bills go up. Their gas goes up, our gas prices for our vehicles goes up. So we have to acknowledge that also. So I think my one suggestion would be is to get involved earlier. Get involved once the mayor starts his budget hearings, and call departments directly. You have a right to meet with any city department. So that would be my suggestion, but that will happen during the month of March. And then sometime in April, the mayor will send his recommended budget to the city council. You will then have your own budget hearings. And then we'll hopefully during the month of May, vote to adopt the 26 budget. But before it gets to you guys, get an idea of which departments you want to focus on, which ones are asking for more money, et cetera, and the reasons, and have side conversations with those department heads. Because I've already had them, we've already had them as a finance team.
You've already had your conversation.
We've been meeting with them monthly. By the time the budget gets to the mayor, we've already met with them. I've already told them, we're cutting this, or we want to do this, or, we've gone through all these steps. So, that's the only thing I can think of is for you guys to get involved sooner so that you have a better understanding, because it's within your power to cut. So if you don't want to see an increase to the budget, and I'm not going to sit here because I don't know right now if I may need to use reserves this year. I don't know. We haven't started putting together all the revenues. We're going to start looking at the revenues that now that we have 6 months through December 31st. So I can't make the commitment. We're going to try to do another year without reserves. I don't know that. But my only suggestion is that you get involved a little earlier and focus. Don't try to talk to be it all of them. Talk to the bigger departments, see which ones have increased, et cetera.
Okay. And when would you say the mayor, you said March. Do you have any idea when in March?
No, we haven't even settled that. I don't. I want to say I'm hoping early on so we can get it, but I don't know that. We still have to get all the documents from the department heads, put it all together, see how far we are off from budgeting, et cetera. So sometime during March.
Counselor Delgado, you
No,
had a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just gonna ask the same question about timing. So I appreciate the heads up of asking counselors to kind of get involved earlier. So I'm assuming that there will be an invitation to the counselors to come. I guess my question is, when will these budget hearings be? Will they be during the workday or will they be after hours? Because some of us, I have a full-time job, right? And so I can't just leave during the day to go do something unless it's around the lunchtime. So my only one question or request would be, if you're gonna do that, as much as possible, is to make it flexible for counselors to be able to attend.
So I will relay that message to the mayor's office and do our best to work around, so that everyone can join.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's his stuff. He's gonna do what he
Right.
wants, but if there's a request for, counselors to be there, just being, mindful of that as well.
Other two, all departments are more than well, I'll speak for myself. Anytime the meeting staying to 5:30, whatever, when you can make it, we'd be happy.
Yeah. Cause I'd love to, be there in the earlier process, so we're not waiting last minute. At the same time, I'd also like to see kind of, you mentioned the line item. I think I'd like to see the line item stuff and have enough time to be able to look at the budget and see it from the line item perspective versus this big old presentation that we get at the end, and then we've got a few weeks to make a decision. So, but I appreciate it.
I'd like to make a suggestion
Yeah, great. Go ahead,
to
Catherine.
the chair. Well, following up on what my colleague has just said about availability, I think it'd be helpful if after these meetings with the department heads, there's some kind of a report or update to the council saying, we met with the park department, this is what they're gonna do. We met with DPW, this is what they need. So if you can't make the meetings, at least there's a report you can look at. So Tim, you might have to go to it as chair.
I might have to what?
You
Go
have
to
to go as chair.
Chair, you were at all of them last year, Tim.
I can as many as I could,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
I
I think it's important to report back to the
but
council.
I
if
have
we're
to
gonna be
say,
more hands-on.
yeah, so I go to them. I don't go to all of them, but I teach 3 mornings a week, depending on when that is. I can't make some things. In March is spring break, so I might have some flexibility there, but I go, but I don't always feel like I'm as effective as I could be by going. And I'm there, I hear some things, and I take an interest in it, but I'll continue to talk to Kathy and Steve and Lindsay about how to be really prepared because I don't remember how much the budget was the year before last, but last year was like 920, was it 920 billion or something? Or was it like 880? Or like, what's it go up like 40 million?
I don't know off the top of my head.
It went up a lot and not throwing any blame at anybody. It's
Well, I
just-
mean, chapter 70 is going up 40 million. 39 million this year, so in FY 26. So a lot of the budget is school department.
Yeah. Do we look at, when we're looking at it, is there a way for us to make the public more aware of the difference between how much the city goes up and how much the schools go up?
We do it in our presentation. We always show when we do the budget, we show the differences, we show the budget busters, pension, transportation that we have no control over, the other accounts that we, that are set that we can't touch, fixed costs versus how much of the budget is actually can be touched. So we do in our budget presentation, lay that all out for the council and the public.
Good.
But we also don't know what the state will eventually do, correct? We set our budget before the state budget is finalized, isn't that correct?
We do, but we usually go on, we go on the governor's numbers, and those are the numbers we're using now. And during the whole process, we do watch what the House and Senate are going to do, so we do see what they're gonna cut, but we always go by the governor's numbers, and those have basically been close every year.
Okay,
And she's
good to
released
know.
her numbers.
And now we have that now.
Yes, she just released them last week.
So, and is that early? It seems early to me.
No,
Right on.
No, this is about.
So what will happen with the Senate and the House versions? What's the timing of that? Is that,
good question.
but there end up to be 3 budgets, right?
Yeah, and there'll be a final one, and usually they'll offer cuts, none, but it usually ends up very close to what the governor wanted. Sometimes our budget passes before then, and we'll have to make adjustments after. But we follow along with what they're saying, so that we know if there's a huge problem or not. So right now, we're sticking with the governor's numbers.
Yeah, the governor will do it, and they send it to the House, House goes through it, then they send it to the Senate goes through it, and then they do conference to another rehash, they agree, and then they send that.
So 2 years ago, we had several people in Springfield come to the microphone and complain about how they couldn't afford their taxes. And we had a repeat last year, not of the same level of emotions or anything, or any particular event, but And I'm not sure we've been really the idea of what I think we should do is we need a budget which we can all agree on, but and that may mean more money than anybody wants, but we might need it. But I was hoping this year that we took a better crack at it, that we really got involved and understood it. Maybe some citizens would be interested in attending a meeting or two about the budget. That crew that we have on the tax committee, Freddie and Tracy had a couple of people there, and Jay Latore, I think. So I appreciate what you said, and I think that, it's what is it, the end of January this week, we should just keep in mind when we can start to do that, when we can start to get more of a grip on it.
Mr. Chair, you have some hands raised on the screen.
Okay, thank you. I can't see the screen, so just anybody help me out.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Mr.
Zaida.
Chair, for the,
Councilor Davila was first.
thank you, Councilor Dewan. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, if I just make a suggestion, I think this is all good stuff, but I think that perhaps we should consider as we progress along in this process, starting maybe in late February, early March, that we start going out to the community and start soliciting input from the community. I remember years ago going myself to community meetings, budget hearings, listening to requesting feedback from the community, because these things are getting tighter. It's becoming more and more cumbersome to balance the budget. And the end result is that people's property taxes do keep, unfortunately, increasing. So we need to listen to the people that are directly affected. And so I would suggest to you, sir, that it might be beneficial to all of us and to the entire West City that we go out and we start soliciting directly input from the community. If I may also, Kathy, a quick question. First of all, I'm happy to see that there's an increase, I believe, of $7 million in the school committee on the school side. There's going to be a slight increase. Was that 7%?
Chapter 70 went up 7.8%. Yes.
Yeah, so that 7.8%. That I'm very glad to see that, because if we had a reduction of that, it will be really detrimental to us. But some quick questions on that. Two things caught my eye. The charter school reimbursement, I noticed that it went down. By 10%? Why is that? Which means like $2.6 million.
Those are estimates, and those are based on the information the school department turned in for the number of students that attend the charter schools. That, as you remember, I don't know if you remember, it is tweaked every so often. We did come back in front of council just recently to correct that number in the budget. So, but that's based on the number of students they estimate to be in the school during 2026 in charter schools.
Oh, so we actually gonna get, so I'm reading this backwards, and so we actually keeping some more money in the school systems, correct?
Right, they're only giving out, right now, they're estimating less money for the charter school reimbursement.
Oh, okay, so I was actually reading it backwards, okay. And then the state-owned land, I see that is the same amount, which is pocket change, 43,073. Has there been effort in trying to adjust to inflation on this? Because we need to capitalize as much as we can.
I'll have to ask about that, Counselor. I don't know that.
Okay. So
I'll
I'm
have to
sure.
get back to you on that.
Yeah, because I'm sure a fair value, that's going to be a lot more than that. So, all right. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thanks for your suggestions. Councilor Govan, did you have some?
Yes, I did. And then Councilor Whitfield also has her hand up. Thank you for that presentation, Kathy. And a question I think that I had is, it seems like we see an increase in the budget every year. And of course, there's inflation, like you said, and there's some, some costs that are inevitable. I'm kind of concerned about the school budget and, um, looking at, I know that you said that we can't do anything about it. Cut it out. I'm sorry, my cats are fighting. We can't do anything about it, but I think that's something that we need to take a look at, and see how that money is being spent and, finding a way to make sure that we're being efficient as well as, our city budget. Looking at that and finding ways to make sure that, before April, before May and June, when it's time to start to talk about taxes, we have a good grip on what we're doing and what our taxpayers are going to be expecting. Because every year since I've been on the council, and this is just my second term, this is going into my third term, hopefully, every year that's the concern, the main concern that I hear about. Right now, I'm looking for ways to, help our constituents want to stay in Springfield, want to continue to live in Springfield. And the cost of everything going up is not helping, right? So we do have a few resources that we're able to use, but I don't think that, it's enough because it seems like there's a lot of benefits for, people that are low income, that are on unlimited incomes, people who have worked their whole lives and are getting a pension don't qualify for benefits. So I'm just hoping that we can find a way this year to, to at least take a look at it and to make some really serious decisions that we have to make because that's what our job is, right? To make decisions to make sure that our constituents are being heard and being reacted to appropriately and not wait for them to come to City Hall crying about, them not being able to afford to live in our city. We want to be proactive and start doing some of that. So I guess um my question I started out with, why is it that we have to increase it every year just because the governor, put an increase to this line item and that line item? Do we have to increase the budget? Is there a need necessarily, right? Instead of just trying to meet the the um the taxes, like we collect so many taxes, do we have to meet that every year? Or could we, continue to stay at a status quo somehow and not have to collect so many taxes the following year? I don't know. I'm thinking outside the box and it might not make any sense, but we have to do something. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I
No,
think
you're
Councilor
welcome.
Whitfield.
Thanks for your ideas and that, I'll come to you in a second, Counselor Whitfield, but that's the idea of this meeting, is to start talking about this stuff in January. We usually don't talk about it much until the mayor's budget meetings and in March, and I just want to do better as chair of finding opportunities for us to be part of the budget process or to ask challenging questions. For instance, a meeting like this in February or something where we invited the public to come, something like that might be something that we could consider. Think out of the box. I mean, we as a council, we complain about the size of the budget, but I don't think any of us have recommended a cut in the last 2 years. I think we've just approved the budget despite what it was. I haven't recommended a cut. I do talk about cutting open recs as low as possible. And I've told Kathy I'll be on that same chorus this time around as well. But in terms of actually looking at it at a particular department and recommending less of something in their budget, we haven't done that. I've been my earlier years on the council, there was some of that. It wasn't a ton, but we had one meeting, 1 year it all came to pass that, we recommended $2.7 million cut. And it caused a lot of friction with the mayor. He didn't like that we did that. And Mike and I kind of led that and we got the votes. And we cut $2.7 million. And it was I don't know if any of you remember that, but it was probably 12 years ago, somewhere around there. And we ended up restoring 1 million, I think, so it ended up to be a 1.7 million cut. It's hard to do. It's a very hard process to find something you want to recommend, go through the public part of, you're recommending something be smaller, and you try to build a good relationship with department heads, and then you recommend to reduce their budget. That's not exactly the formula for making friends kind of thing. And then, but it's our job. So we did it. It was hard. We did it. I'm sure we did a little bit more of it after that, but that was our one big attempt at it. And he kind of, he stopped cutting the trees on the terraces. He said, if you're gonna cut the budget, then we're not gonna cut the trees on the terraces, like Gillette Avenue and Hartford Terrace and Magnolia Terrace and places like that. So the grass grew longer, and it was one of those political things. And it doesn't make everybody feel good, but that's what happened that time. And I think at this point, you don't have to worry about the retribution or what the impact is. We just need to figure out what we want to do and put some more effort into it. I think some ideas will come forward just if we get more involved in it early on. Yeah, Counselor Whitfield, would you like to go?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to echo what my colleagues are saying. I think that being proactive is the way to go, and starting this early in the process also is. I just had one question. I'm sorry about the background noise. One question about what Councilor Delgado said about the meetings being during the day. Is there a way that there could be Zoom links offered like these meetings? I don't know if that was answered and I didn't hear it because I came a bit late.
These are the mayor's budget hearings, so I'm gonna have, I'll ask him. I mean, it is up to him because they're his budget hearings, but I will request that they're later in the day, or if not, in the evening, and if he could, have Zoom links available. So that is something I'll have to talk to the mayor about.
That's great.
I
That's
can't
fair.
answer for him.
That's fair.
Thank you for that. The second thing that I wanted to bring up is the governor has been talking about infrastructure funding, a lot more being brought into cities and towns. And I wanted to know if we got a number on an increase for like street paving, roads, things like, street paving and sidewalks. Because I've been to like hear her speak probably like 4 times now, and we always hear about that.
I don't believe Chris Signoli has a chapter 90 number yet. But I can inquire as if he does. I think it's too early to find out that yet for next year.
Okay, and then the final thing that I had is we look at the budget, and I know we only approve the expenditures, but we don't see the whole story if we don't have the revenue side, right? And so we're gonna vote on the budget not knowing how much property tax is gonna increase and things like that, and I don't think that that's really fair. So I'm gonna request the revenue side of the budget also, so that we can have a full picture of what's coming in, even down to the grants that's coming in. Because this isn't telling the full story. I also want to be cautious. We did cut the budget since I've been on it, like 200,000 from the police department. I remember that one.
We did that. You're right. I remember that. Yep.
Yep. But it is just like, we need to know what the numbers are right now, because then we can anticipate how to, talk to the community about it, about property tax increase, because when we increase this budget by 38 million, 9 times out of 10, the property taxes are gonna go up like some millions as well. So we need a full budget to make a educated decision on certain things. And then we want to avoid, like, we don't get down into the weeds of expenditures enough. Like, for example, when the police fire range, it was bought for like $500,000, and then we entered into a 20-year lease agreement. I think it's like 6 million over a certain amount of time that we're spending on something that they bought at like $500,000 or $700,000. That to me was not fiscally responsible. So we need to know when big contracts like that are coming down the pipe where we're gonna be paying, people who bought our buildings for water, sewer, for electricity and, you know, paying them rent. Like, we need to know about those big contracts ahead of time so that, you know, that's something that we can also take into consideration. I don't know if there's any big contracts like that coming down the pike in the near future, but it is something that I'm requesting ahead of time, so we don't have to dig into the budget and be like, oh, what's this? And then we're surprised, caught off guard, it's already been signed. No, we need to know that ahead of time.
I'm happy to have, we have obviously finance committee meetings on a regular basis before regular meetings. Happy to have the normal stuff where we go over the items on the agenda and add a budget item in, a budget issue, kind of, if there are budget things that have come up that we should know about, we can put that on the agenda. I'm happy to do that. And then it'll be something we can ask about.
I appreciate that. I just don't like the element of surprise. And I want the full picture. I don't just want the expenditure side. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you for your thoughts. Anybody else got their name up there? Nobody else, okay. We keep going on this. Stephen, I forgot to introduce you before, so sorry, but go ahead.
Stephen Howard. Thank you, Mr. Chair. In a situation, for example, whereby there's not a lot of expenditures going into snow removal, what is going to happen with the budget that said, well, okay, we will spend X amount of snow removal, we only spent like maybe 10% of that budget. What happens with that money?
That would be closed out to free cash in the end if they don't spend the money.
Okay, and
We don't budget, the last few years have been lucky, but years before that, we've had to actually appropriate funds because we didn't have enough. So at this point, I don't think he is the authority to deficit spend. I don't think we have started deficit spending yet, but we are only in the last week of January. So we don't know what storms we're gonna get in February, March. But eventually that is closed out to free cash. They don't use it for anything else. Or they
Okay.
can't without coming to the council.
now you were talking about early meetings, right? What would you recommend as far, I know you said March, but I'm talking about before, do you think that these initial meetings should start before March? Like
They can't start before March because we're still waiting for all the departments. We have not sent out any worksheets for them to start submitting their budget. So we do have to give, now that we have the governor's numbers, we're gonna start working on the revenues, but we have to give the departments some time to put together their budget requests for next year.
Okay,
So that's why the month of February, they'll be doing that.
two more things real quick, Mr. Chair. NCAPA, which is run by Ed Whitley, Neighborhood Council and Civic Associations. It's like a group that he's basically in charge of.
Yep.
That'll be a good place for the information about what's being discussed here to be distributed. And it will be a good way for, say, that group to invite members, whether it's, whoever it is, to come to these different meetings. And also the C3 meeting, they have maybe say 30 organizations or so. I don't want to misspeak, that come together on a weekly basis. That'll be a good place for the information to be presented so that there could be some input from the community there. And the last thing is with what I'm hearing about the possibility of cuts to the Veterans Administration. This increase that I'm seeing here, 53%, how do you see any impact with that policy of trying to cut back the Veterans Administration with this new administration having on this?
At this point, we don't, with the new administration, we don't know what those cuts will be. But right now, I think those numbers are solid from the state. Are you talking about the cuts at the federal level?
I just want to know what impact the federal cuts
I
would
don't
have on
know.
the state.
I don't know. I think we're all holding our breath on all the federal cuts right now.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think we're gonna feel the full impact of federal cuts during the FY26 budget. I have a feeling it's gonna be the FY27. But again, I think most of the world is holding their breath right now,
Thank you, Mr.
to be
Chair.
honest with you.
Okay, thank you. So that kind of ends the first item. Thanks, everybody, for your participation. The second item was an update on casino and cannabis money. This is a item that kind of floats throughout the year. And we have some good information here. I met with Kathy and Lindsay and Steve the other day and asked you guys to just run us through this money that ends up that comes from different places and ends up being available for different things.
So the MGM Community Development Fund, the Department of Revenue changed the regulations with that money back in December of 23. That money is now considered the mayor's money. He makes all the decisions on this money. It does not have to go back in front of the council for appropriation. So to date, we've received 15 million. And you'll see MGM's the spending from the Community Development Fund so far. And right now, the balance remaining is $6 million.
So before the policy change, it became the mayor's discretion. What was it gonna be?
It had to be appropriated by, we had to go in front of the city council. And then they decided they didn't know what to do with it, so they stopped, everyone stopped spending, and then they came back out that this is basically the mayor's money to appropriate.
And when you said they, who's they?
Department of Revenue.
Department of Revenue. So these items that you've got over on the right,
Are what the mayor has approved.
what he's approved. And are you generally, you as the CAFO or your
It's the
team?
law department. The law department signs off that it's an eligible use of the funds, and then I certify that the funds are available. And it's the mayor's decision then. Once we certify it's eligible and the funds are available, it's his decision whether he wants to fund it. And it's available. Department heads have put in a request for the money. Economic Development requested the SRA affordable housing and the Court Square Urban Renewal Plan money, and Bruce Landaway was requested by Chris Signoli.
So when somebody requests, nobody knows the right number. So, Bruce Landaway, $960,000.
He had an estimate of the work.
So it's not just a number that appears. from
There's a
somewhere.
budget, so Tim Sheehan put in a budget for the uses of the urban renewal plan, and Chris Signoli put in a budget, and he had estimates for that's the amount of the money. That's the cost of the work.
So that $6 million that's sitting there.
Yes,
And do you know of any requests that have been made for that?
there have not been any requests to myself or the law department as of now.
All right. Well, yeah, why don't we go, Counselor Delgado?
I think Tracy had it first and then you can come back to me.
Okay,
The law department did a whole description of the change in the law, and I can send that out to all the counselors so they can look at that.
that would be good because
For
that's
the
different.
Department of Revenue,
Yeah,
for the return interpretation, the law department did it, and then the mayor did a letter.
Yeah, that would be really helpful, Kathy, but I have a couple of comments, Mr. Chair.
yeah, go ahead.
It's disturbing to see exactly, besides the libraries rewrite now and the early school ed, that was way probably in FY19. But since the law changed, 7.9 million went into what CS urban renewal plan? What
Court Square Urban Renewal Plan, it was a
so
renewal-
everything to do with this almost has to do with downtown Springfield. And the community always talks about all the money that comes in goes to downtown Springfield, like the rest of the city doesn't matter. And I don't care if it's the mayor's discretion. When we talked, it was said that the community would be involved, or the city council would be involved with the spending of these funds. It's only fair because the community is going to the casino and helping them generate the revenue that's coming into MGM, that it should really be decided by the community how these funds should be spent. And the fact that we didn't get this letter ahead of time, that we're gonna get it after 7.9 million been spent on Court Square Urban Renewal Plan. That is really, really disappointing and disturbing because we come to the finance department with a city council meeting every single year to ask what's going on with MGM. And we was like, oh, the law's changing, but we're still gonna have city council involvement. We're still gonna have community involvement. And then we get surprises like this. That is really, really disappointing. It is unfair. And this is not the way government should work. This is not how government works together. This is not how government works together. We've been drilling for MGM funds and spending since FY 20, FY 19. This is really, really disturbing to me. And I'm not appreciative of how things get swept under the rug or it's forgotten to tell the city council what's happening when we ask year after year after year after year about these funds and the spending of these funds. That is really snake-like to me. I don't know how else to say it. Like 7.95 million in Court Square Urban Renewal, like there's no other communities that could use some of this funding to develop. There's other communities, not just downtown Springfield. Then you got Bruce Landon Way, you know, come on. And what is the SRA Affordable Housing Plan? I would love to know that, especially since I'm on the Housing Trust Committee. I want to see if any money is going to go into that to help with our housing crisis.
Okay, so,
And please tell Mayor Sarno, or I could tell him myself, that this is very disappointing how this was swept under the rug. We were not kept abreast of what was happening with MGM money. And I know I spearheaded this conversation many of times. So to see this right now is truly, truly disappointing. Thank you,
okay,
Mr.
thank you. Yeah, thanks. Did you have
Yeah.
something?
No, I just, it was kind of the same thing with Counselor Whitfield, and I actually agree with Counselor Whitfield in terms of, I didn't realize that had changed, because I know the original community development grant, you know, the uses were for specifics, early education, which I see that in there, higher ed, health impacts, city parking revenue subsidy, potential if there was a shortfall. Project compliance, and the last one was betterment of city and its residents. So are you saying now that that whole piece that was in
But
the,
that piece isn't gone. But it's that the mayor has the authority to appropriate. the
so it's still, there's still
Yeah,
those
there's still the
stipulations?
uses. Yep.
Okay.
Those are still the uses, the
Yep.
ones that were.
All right.
So how do we get in that line? Like, how do we
Well,
influence?
I
them?
wasn't.
I'm sorry. Go
Sorry,
ahead.
Mr. But I just wanted to understand though too, so I've seen these payments have gone up every fiscal year, so I'm assuming they're just keeping up with whatever the agreement is. And then I see the 6 million remaining, so that tells me that we've been kind of stacking this money for a number of years. Is
We
that,
have been, because there was the Department of Revenue was trying to decide there was a question of how to use this money.
okay, so
So they were waiting for the Department of Revenue to come out with guidance. And then when they did come out with guidance, in December of 23, that is now, it's basically the mayor has the right to appropriate
so
these funds.
essentially we weren't able to use the fund.
We put it on hold until they came out with it. But none of these commitments were made by the mayor. All of them were made back just in November.
And then the last piece is, so
This has
this
been
is,
going on since December of
and so
23.
this is just one bucket of funds that we get from MGM. We do get,
There's money that goes directly into the general fund, yes.
so there's the general fund money, there's the community impact payments, right? The chapter 121A payments, so I guess, you know, to the point of the budget, I'd love to see how we're spending those dollars, not just this 2.5 or 3.64 now. I'd be curious to know how we're spending the other aspects, because, you know, I think at this point, where are we getting over 20 something million dollars from MGM every year? That's a big chunk of change that, you know, it'd be good to break that out as well.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So just to clear, thank you, Counselor. Just to clear, so Counselor Delgado just said something about 20 million. Well, 17.6 isn't in here, right? The 17.6.
No, this is every year that they put money directly into this fund.
In that fund, but
In
the
that fund.
17.6 for the 121A.
No.
That's not in here.
No.
That's a separate
Separate.
payment to the general fund, et
Yep.
cetera. Okay, so there is money that still comes in to this fund, and it would be nice if you could ask around for how we could at least give input to it. If not be part of the,
On how to spend the balance, the 6 million.
yeah, or just.
I mean, it's the mayor, so what these departments did is write him a memo saying, we would like to use this amount of money for the following projects and gave a budget, et cetera. So, I mean, I can't speak for the mayor, but if you put something together, that's how would he'd like to see the fund spent. He would consider it, we'd send it to law and myself to confirm that it's eligible under those uses. There is the funding, and then it'll be up to him to, make the decision.
Or you could hold it, right? Because, you know, we're also waiting what you're saying impacts could be for fiscal 27, right? And so there's nothing that says he can't hold that and
Right, if you want to hold it
if
the
we
same-
wanted to-
Yeah, you could make suggestions or talk to him
and
about
get
it, or, yeah.
interest and get interest off of that too. You have Counselor Dodd.
Thank you. Thanks, Counselor Davila. Go right ahead.
You're on mute.
Floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kathy, what happened in fiscal year 24 here with MGM, CDF? There's a 0 there.
They
there's
were able
nothing.
to use, the 24 they were able to use for the general fund, based on guidance from, Division of Local Services. So we did use the 24 allocation, to balance the budget. But that was just the 1 year we were able to do that.
Okay, and how much money did we get that year from MGM?
I don't know. I don't know if Lindsay, if you remember the exact amount, I don't have that with me.
So we probably got close to 2.9 million, and that's because DOR actually said that we had to, because they said that the way that we were putting the host community funding into this fund outside of the general fund wasn't right. They said
Right.
all the money has to go into the general fund. So that's why we did that in FY24. And we were able to change it back in FY25, but it was about 2.9 million.
Right, now Kathy, just refresh my memory. This money is for projects in the entire city in order for downtown. And department heads writing suggestions or proposals and project proposals, and the mayor decides how the money is going to be used, correct?
Right, it has to be used for one of the, I have that, one of the lists of uses it has in the host community agreement. So it has to be used for one of those, but the catch-all is the last one, to improve the lives. Well, you said it, I don't have it right in front of me.
What was that?
The last
It's,
use of the money,
The last use was betterment of city and its residents.
betterment of the city and its residents. So that kind of incorporates almost anything.
Right, so Kathy, I do feel obligated to, of course, like I always advocate for my district and here in Forest Park. And let me at least tell you what's happening in Forest Park, which has been going for a while, and we seem to be hitting a black a wall here. And that is, if you look at Sumner Avenue, we got strips of parts of Sumner Avenue that it's pretty dark. It's almost like a complete blackout. And basically, it is decorative lights, antique looking lights, particularly near the Forest Park district and past near CVS. There's no lights there. I know I myself have come close to having accidents there because it's so dark. We're currently trying to get those fixed. My understanding is they're trying to put the highway style lights up there, which are far cheaper, which is not even close to appropriate for a historic district. And not only it doesn't do a good job in lighting. And I'm not saying we're going to use the $6 million to do this, but we need to figure out a way in which we can make this happen, because it's not only a safety issue, but it's also a quality of life here for Springfield. So when you do speak to the mayor, I do need to speak to the mayor of that issue myself, but I will appreciate if you could pass it on, because we need to start identifying money for that project, because it's been going on for a while, and I'm starting to get a little annoyed by it, to be honest with you, because it's something that needs to be done, it's a priority, and the buck's being passed. And I don't want to see anybody get killed on that street on Summer Avenue because it's too damn dark. Thank you, Kathy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So, I mean, you know, we're winding down a little bit, in this meeting. There's a lot of discussion on that page. The next page, why don't we talk about the marijuana money and how that works, and then we can wrap up.
I don't know if Counselor Perez, this is the funding that Counselor Perez's committee is working on. And I don't have an
That,
update.
that's
on that.
called the Neighborhood Stabilization Fund.
Marijuana Neighborhood Stabilization
committee.
Fund.
So this is the money, none that we know has been allocated. Then.
Nothing has been allocated. I don't know where Counselor Perez is on
Okay,
this pot of money.
so for this meeting, and that's progress that we at least have the amount of money. And it's come from all the different cannabis shops in Springfield. You can't, I think you said you can't spell it out by shop. Which is a little different than originally when we voted on a 33% or something of money going to, you know, a neighborhood cannabis shop where that was in that neighborhood kind of thing. You kind of needed to know how much came from that shop. That was kind of the idea. It doesn't seem like that's available. So I don't want to opine on this. If Counselor Perez is involved with this and has a committee. Have you guys been, has she had a committee meeting here?
We went to one meeting.
Yeah.
The law department was there, yes, and she was supposed to get back.
So we'll talk to her about that. I'd say, you know, in terms of, Kathy just said, if we have a recommendation for the mayor, I mean, she could talk to the mayor about that $6 million and how money has been spent so far, but going forward, there may be an opportunity for the city council or members of the city council to say that here's something we think money should be spent on. There's $6 million there. So is that fair that you'll talk to the mayor about that and say that there might be a request from the
Yes.
council?
Oh, yes.
Zaida,
Mr.
could you-
Chair.
Yeah, go
No,
ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you know, when we have, I don't know if this, for example, the marijuana stabilization fund, if we could figure out a way to, I don't know if I'm saying this right, reduce the budget using some of this money to help the taxpayers, or use some of the MGM money, you know, to help reduce the budget to help the taxpayers. But anytime I think that we find ourselves with having some extra money, I think our top priority should always be to help our taxpayers instead of finding another project to do. If we have $67 million in free cash, a majority of that should be going to help the taxpayers as opposed to finding other projects that, you know, weren't initially in the budget, and then got added because we happen to have $67 million in free cash. So I think going forward, I would just love for us to be able to think about that first before thinking about other projects that we might be able to come up with. Thank you, Ms.
Okay. I mean, I could see having another conversation on this the next time we meet or a month from now or something, and see if Kathy can speak to the mayor and tell him that there might be some requests coming from the city council. And he can handle, or members of the city council, he can handle it how he wants. So Stephen, you had your hand up before.
Yes, thanks again, Mr. Chair. I would highly recommend that this $6 million, seeing that it's not the only money coming from MGM, and there's 17 million there, like they were saying a while ago, that this $6 million be earmarked to help property owners keep their taxes at a certain level. Because if you're asking property owners to, like homeowners, to pay more money in taxes, and then you're taking some of that money to fund cannabis facilities, when the homeowner is on fixed income, it doesn't make any sense to me why you'll take from people who are struggling to give to other people who establish a business and that business is failing, and we are actually supporting them instead of supporting the community. So I think that the 6 million, and I wish I could make a motion that it'd be a proposal to have that $6 million go towards property taxes. And I don't understand why it is that looking at, even though it's been, as was said, that the council that isn't here to speak about the marijuana stuff. But I'm just looking at numbers, and as Councilor Whitfield said a while ago, I'm not seeing revenue. I'm not seeing expenses. All I'm seeing is money that's going towards the cannabis folks.
So I mean, I'm gonna, we probably need to call it in this meeting in a few minutes. I mean, we've made good progress here. We didn't have these numbers before this meeting. So rather than being impulsive and saying this is what we should do, I think what we should do is, I'm gonna suggest what we should do is look over these numbers, let them sit, talk to other counselors, share this information. And at a subsequent meeting, or if somebody has an idea of something they want to see funded, maybe put something together and see if you have other counselors who agree with you. Kathy can talk to the mayor and see how he wants to handle it. I don't see us, personally don't see us responding and doing something right away. I think only half the council knows about this. We all knew something was going on out there about money, but I think it's a step forward. Do we have the money? Kathy has told us how other people got that money and, for the projects that have been funded. So let's talk to our colleagues and talk to our president and see if there's a next step for us. You see, does that seem all right, Kathy?
I have a quick, if, Mr. Chair,
Yeah.
did we go over this? Marijuana?
We just did. That's in Maria's committee.
Oh,
That's the
Maria's-
money that's in Maria's
But
committee.
is this what we have or spent? Cause they
That's
got
what we
the,
have.
We haven't spent
We haven't
anything.
spent
oh, haven't spent any of that yet, okay, just,
So that's what we have, 2 million plus, and that's what Maria's neighborhood stabilization fund. I never knew what that committee was charged with, but that's what they're charged with, so. Any other questions for today? We're about at 6:30. We covered a lot of turf. At a subsequent, when will be our next finance committee meeting? Our regular meeting is 2 weeks from today, February 10th.
February 10th, we have a council meeting, so we'll have.
Yeah, so that'll have the items that are on the agenda that night. We can do a touch back to this.
We'll have a full agenda, I'm sure.
Yeah, we won't have a lot of time for other stuff, but
oh, I know what I wanted to say, Mr. Chair.
yeah.
Can we see exactly what the Court Square
Yeah, I'll give you
Overview.
the memos, exactly what makes that up.
Money is
Yep,
is for, okay.
yep.
All right, thanks, everybody. Anybody have any last thing? Appreciate the involvement and the attendance from everybody. Good information shared here. Now let's see what we do with it. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you. See you soon.
We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So move.
Second.
Second. All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.